I'm so delighted, grateful to be able to count myself amongst those who have been vaccinated, and I strongly urge everyone who is able to please do so as soon as possible. It's in these last weeks that one has seen the rise of the scourge of anti-Semitism across the world. It was Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, Zichrono Livracha, who spoke about the mutation of anti-Semitism, how in the Middle Ages it was for reasons of religion, and in the more recent times, in the Enlightenment era, it was because of science and the race theories that emerged. And in much more recent times, it takes on the guise of social justice and the supposed ills of the state of Israel. There's an additional dynamic in anti-Semitism that relates to projection. Now, the world has taken the greatest ills, the sickest elements of society, compiled the list of them, and then projected them specifically and only against Israel and the Jewish people. So let's think of some of the terms that have been bandied about. We speak of Holocaust, and we speak of genocide, and we speak of colonization, colonialism. We speak about murder of children and rape of women. We speak about war crimes, and we speak about forced evictions, land appropriation, apartheid, racism. And every single one of these are directed specifically and only at the Jewish state, at Israel. It's almost as if the world needs to purge its conscience for the ills of all the crimes that it has perpetrated over the years and over the centuries by projecting this sin and the guilt of either doing it or being complicit in one's silence onto the Jewish people, the victims of all of these terrible horrors throughout the ages. And so what emerges is that you have the Jews, who should be the greatest example of a liberation movement and an inspiration to every oppressed people in the world. You have the Jewish people who have been expelled from their land and sold into slavery thousands of years ago, returning home, re-emerging from the dark winter of these terrible crimes performed against them, being able to recreate their ancient language as a spoken tongue, being able to create a success story in the Middle East that is unprecedented. This should be an example to every oppressed nation in the world, that if you work at it and if you develop yourself and you put your mind to building and developing, you can emerge, God forbid, from a Holocaust, and you can create the dynamic success story that is Israel. We should be lauded for being the liberation people that is an example to the entire world. And yet it is precisely the terrorists who have invented the crimes of putting bombs into pizza stores, of blowing up buses filled with civilians and children, of being able to fire rockets specifically to cause harm to civilians, who have written into their charter the desire to destroy the Jewish people. It's written in their charter. And yet they are the ones who are pointing fingers and saying that the Jewish people are killing children, and the Jewish people desire to cause harm to civilians. It is precisely the leader of Hamas, Haniyeh, whose own relative, even in this last war, and so too it was in 2014, then it was his child, and this time it was his niece, was in the Ichilov hospital in Tel Aviv receiving treatment on humanitarian grounds while he was lobbing rockets at the civilian centers in Israel. While Israel was treating his niece and looking after on humanitarian grounds, we are accused of wanting to kill children. It is this Shabbat that we speak about Aaron, who was a lamplighter. So there needs to be many responses to anti-Semitism: information, proliferation of knowledge, making sure that the narrative, the Jewish narrative, reaches out to the world around us. But there has to be an inner challenge as well, a challenge to you and me and each of one of us as the Jewish people. Aaron was a lamplighter in the sanctuary, and he symbolizes what we can be as lamplighters in society. We need to love each other more. We need to ignite the spark in each other. We need to somehow create a warmth and a fire and an optimism in one another, because we tolerate each other, we care for one another. We love each other more, whether we're religious or whether we're not religious, whether we're old or young or this party or that political party. We need to love each other more. It was the same Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, who once commented, just as Hitler sought out every Jew in hatred, it was the Lubavitcher Rebbe who sought out and looked for every single Jew in love, to find a Jew across the world and to reach out and to love them more. That is a clear, unique challenge to each and every one of us in our own lives, in our own families, in our own communities. Let's bond with each other more. Let's care for each other more. Let's phone each other and connect with each other in a way that demonstrates our true love to one another, which is our antidote, our vaccine to anti-Semitism. May Hashem bring peace to Am Yisrael. May Hashem bring peace to the entire region of the Middle East. May Hashem bring peace and tranquility to a world that has seemed to have lost its conscience. May the scourge of anti-Semitism end. Have a beautiful Shabbos.